Grace, good morning. Good morning. It is early in the morning. This is Terrence Frederick, Chief Servant of the Kingdom Media Foundation, member of the Watchman Society, and Think King and Love Covenant Church. How's everybody this morning? Grace and peace. Grace and peace. I'm just going to wait for a minute before I get started. I know it's been a minute since I jumped on, but I just want to drop some words of life for you. Get this word in you real quick. We're talking about play is serious. Play is serious. Games are gates. And recreation recreates. Play is serious. Games are gates. And recreation recreates. Recreation recreates. I was thinking about, I've been on this digital art app and finding different apps to play around with artistic design, with no desire at all to become an artist, to do anything in the arts in real life. No desire to bring it out of the digital world into the physical world. I just was looking at something to do, doodling, playing around. I would say entertaining myself. But the more I began to work with it, whether it was Prisma or some of the other ones, the more I began to play around with it, the more desire increased, the more passion increased by virtue of hours used and also by seeing what I could create. And when I began to understand that an application has technology, that's all it is technology. But what it is really applying is not only an application to work with the phone, but it's also an application to install or to activate something in your mind. It's to activate a way of thinking. It's to activate a skill, or it's to activate a process. So an application is not only an application of the device, but it's also an application for the user. So it's your app. It's not only the device's app, it's your application, because it's another method by which you can function or do something. And so then when I began to start looking at how I started getting a greater desire to do natural art or traditional art, because I was dealing with digital art, I began to start being reminded of a message. Even Apostle Kimberly Daniel preached one time, and she was talking about her son who used to play Madden all the time. He liked football, but he used to play Madden all the time, and he played so much to then he ended up becoming a professional football player. He had never had been on the teams in school. Or if he was on the teams, I don't remember if he got cut, or I don't think he actually had a full time in high school playing football. But what he did do all the time was play on the video game. And he played on the video game to such a degree that he got good at it. Another way that she said it was, he was into it so much that it got into him. And so we can go from the digital world, and the digital world then becomes a portal to translate into the natural world. We understand this when we talk to children about what they watch on TV, and really adults nowadays, and the things that we put in our system. A lot of times we think because we are adults, we can separate the difference between what is fiction and what is fact. We can separate nonfiction and fiction. We can separate fantasy and horror from real life. But believe me, if you constantly are engaged with something, the mind doesn't know how to make those separations. And on some level, on a subconscious level, downloads and impartations are being placed inside of us on the deepest level of our consciousness, under our awareness, that can come out in different ways at different times, whether they come manifest as fears, or whether they manifest as beliefs about the world, whether they manifest as tolerances about things that are intolerable. Those things come in, whether they manifest as ways that we deal with conflict resolution whenever we have been struck with a crisis, or whether we fell out with somebody, the way that we handle things, the way that we act out. Do we act out in such a way that's similar to the reality TV shows? Do we act out in such a way, if we're watching, Criminal Minds or whatever, do we act out in such a way that we attach ourselves to a character or anybody that's moving in a certain way? Or if a plot has been a theme that's entertaining to us, like Scandal or something like that, do we identify and associate ourselves with characters to such a degree where we play out these scenes? Or we have hidden desires that then begin to form, or things that we accept as normal because we are watching it on this series, and we're on the 8th and 10th episode and or season, and we're waiting to see what's coming next. So it's building an expectation for what's going to happen, how is it going to be, and we think that all this stuff is not getting into us. But anything that you participate in, anything that your eyes behold over and over again, whether it's adult entertainment or whatever, we might see a fantasy or something like that, and if you're bound in that, then you might be watching that all the time, and then you want to make those things a reality in real life, and or become bitter because your spouse is not going to perform like these adult entertainers. And so, which really, they are daughters of Ishtar. And it's a form of worship. So we don't understand that these things that are in the realm of the digital, in that medium, that they are actually mediating for us, and they're helping us to draw things out of ourselves or to deposit things into ourselves. So play is serious. Play becomes serious. There's nothing wrong with play. There's nothing wrong with playing. But what happens is, if we don't understand our minds, and we don't understand the psychology, we don't understand our biology, and we don't understand that playing, even back in the days in ancient times, playing was used to help with all kinds of task building skills, whether it was playing house or whether it was playing like a warrior. Remember, we played cops and robbers as children. Playing has a way of helping us it's a role play to us to understand a role interactively, dynamically. Instead of just hearing about it, we become the role, or we become the character. And as we begin to play with anything, our mind then puts us in that scene, and then we begin to start using the faculties connected to it. And what happens is, it begins to build its skill building exercises, and it begins to make us, or to remake us. So play is not always play. Play that is repetitive is a way of teaching. Go ye therefore into all the world and teach. So one of the ways we learn is through demonstration. We can learn from the audible, but we can learn kinetically, through demonstration, or we can learn through hearing, seeing, all those different things. Watching a model. But when we get into that role, it's one of the best ways to learn. Different people learn differently, but play is serious. So It's not that we shouldn't play, but we should just be mindful of whatever we are playing. Those things are setting up connections inside of us that is helping to build us, whether it's problem solving skills. If you sit around and you play chess all the time, it's going to impact your problem solving skills, at least logistically, or in a particular method. Maybe not all kinds of problems, but certain maneuver problems. If you're playing spades, there are certain skills you get through the practice, whether it's reading people, whether it's understanding and looking for subtle details on whether someone's bluffing or whether somebody is hiding something or whatever. So anytime that you play, you are building skills. You're building reasoning skills. You're building interactive skills. If you're playing with someone else, you're building some kind of skills, whether it's on a conscious level or a subconscious level. Whatever we play with becomes serious. It becomes a part of building who we are. And then games. We say games are gates. Games are gateways. A lot of us like to just play games just to relax and unwind. But we don't realize that games are gateways. What started as passive moves into a hobby at times, and sometimes moves into a profession, playing games. And I'm really thinking about right now, it's all kind of games, but right now I'm fixing it on digital games, the games that we play on our phones, the games we play on our tablets, the games that we play, because we think that because we are not there or we're not doing anything physical, we think that we're not teaching our brains. But our brains are always trying to learn something, trying to reconcile something, trying to figure out something. And if all we're putting before it is a game, then the game then becomes the tutor, whatever kind of game it is, whether it's pattern recognition game or if it's some kind of other kind of game. Games are gateways. And then you have recreation. And recreation, what it really does is it recreates pathways in your mind. As I was saying before, when we play, interaction, it produces patterns and pathways. So entertainment, we need to really look at that, because entertainment, it leads us to a certain place and it does something inside of us. We need to think about whether we're trying to be entertained or we're trying to celebrate. For those of us who talk about the 7 spheres of influence, we talk about one of them being arts and entertainment. But I really like arts and celebration better, because we need to be careful about being entertained. We need to be careful about that. The thing I want to really highlight in all of this is what you might think is not impacting you is impacting you. And most of the time it's coming through your games. It's coming through what you're playing. It's coming through your recreation. Now, some people may not have digital games, may not play board games, but whatever you do for your leisure, it's still instructing you, and it's still helping to build character. It's still helping to build your characteristics. So we look at that. Going back to the example with the art. Now I'm getting colored brushes and colored pencils, and I'm actually taking physical paper and playing around with art, where this really was something I was just doing with a digital art app before. Because whatever you play with long enough becomes serious. Because what it does, your mind doesn't know that you weren't doing real art. If you don't want to call digital art real art, your mind doesn't know that you weren't doing quote unquote real art the whole time. All it knows is it was engaged in a certain type of process of matching colors and shapes and merging things together and positioning things and contrasting things. And the mind thinks if you can do it on the app, you can do it in real life. So you can utilize games and you can utilize the digital realm to help you build skill, for skill building. And this part is very important for apostolic leadership, because we need to understand the digital world that we're living in, and that it's very it's the digital realm is increasing, knowledge is increasing, and we're going to have more apps, we're going to have more platforms in order to minister the gospel, in order to teach all nations. And we need to understand that games, role playing, any kind of interaction, the dynamic interactive world of AI, artificial intelligence, and also digital reality, or augmented reality, all those things are not going anywhere. So the church has a choice to make. The church has a choice to make. We can choose to ignore that people are going to be walking around with these things on their faces, looking into alternate universes, alternate realms, alternate realities, and they're going to be engaging, and they're already doing it, but it hasn't really hit mainstream like that, but spending hours upon hours upon hours in virtual reality. People are going to be spending hours and hours and hours in virtual worlds that they create. They're going to have built communities within and amongst one another that's all based upon exchanging virtual realities, and realities that in worlds that they create with one another, so that if they're riding down the street and they're both connected, then they can have secret messages and art that's on a wall that nobody else can see, because they're not connected to their worlds. So the church does have a choice to make, and say, these people are just playing. This is not going to go anywhere. This is just frivolous behavior. And if the church doesn't engage, we're going to find ourselves even more so disconnected. And then whenever a church decides to step out and say, we got to do something, we need to create some holograms. We need to create some databases where we can interact with people in augmented reality. And the church that does do that, that church is going to be looked at as a church that's compromising. They just need to stick to preaching the gospel, teaching the truth, and not that they're not teaching the truth, but just because a church is going to start taking advantage of the technology, they're going to be labeled as heretics. But I want to tell you, the day that we live in, they're already now in certain churches, they have site churches where they have masses of people who go to a church where they don't have an actual pastor present, but they all come to watch on a screen a preacher preach, instead of them building up people who could actually lead and shepherd in that local facility. They still have caretakers and shepherds, so I shouldn't say that. But as far as the main preacher, they all come and watch a screen where they're sending a satellite signal to different churches. Well, it's going to come to a point to where it won't just be on a screen, but it will be on a hologram. And so they'll be looking at a hologram of a person. Now that right there, I'm not really with that, because I believe that the church should have the life in it to reproduce after its own kind, build up local leaders to lead. But I am saying that there are going to have to be ways that we are willing to interact with games, recreation, and play, because those things are the ways that the enemy has been seducing this generation, where this, even on Sundays, this generation now, many are out of pocket on Sunday services to watch football or to play football. So you can knock that and say, God forbid that they prioritize football over Sunday. But see, some of us worship a day. Some of us worship Sunday, and that's idolatry. Sunday is no more of a holy day than any other day. Yes, Christ rose up on the first day, but every day has been dedicated, in the natural, has been dedicated to a false god. Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, you can go through it. And then at the same time, in Christ, every day has been made holy in him because he is our day. We enter into his rest. He is our Sabbath. And so we should not glorify a day, whether we are Seventh Day people who choose to worship on the Sabbath, whether that's Friday evening to Saturday, or if we choose to worship on a Sunday, or if we choose to worship on a Wednesday or a Tuesday. We can worship any day of the week we want. But what we have to understand is that he is Lord of every day. He is Lord of every day, but more and more our culture is calling people away from traditional worship times. So the church can sit back and complain that people are not coming to church on Sunday, or the church can realize that he's Lord over every day. And in some instances, it's better to gather and celebrate and connect on a different day. But what are they doing? What are they doing on these different time frames now, or on these old days? What are they doing? They're watching football. They're playing games on the Xbox and PlayStation. They're engaged interactively a lot of times, whether it be on TV, whether it be on the internet, in the gaming realm. So once again, I'll say play is serious, games are gates, and recreation recreates. Play is serious. So while you see people playing is discipling people. While you see people playing games, Call of Duty or whatever, I don't even know all the games, the gun games. People are literally learning skills about how to annihilate people, how to kill people, how to be a sniper, how to be efficient in warfare. People who've never handled guns before learn how to do this by interacting with games. Well, that's a negative connotation, but it's all based on what you use it for. But these platforms of gaming, the platforms of playing, the platforms of recreation, and what we call entertainment, which really is not a good word when it comes to that. What we call things that we do for amusement are their training bases, or their platforms for discipleship. They're platforms for discipleship. So I say choose to get engaged and find a way to where you can utilize the technology of the day to perpetuate the gospel of the kingdom. Use the technology of the day to find a way to advance his cause. Or at least understand that whenever you're engaging with the technology of the day, that you are literally training your brain and retraining your brain and retraining yourself how to perceive yourself. So back in the day, you never really saw a whole lot of believers sitting there taking pictures, looking like half animals, with animal tongues, animal faces, animal ears, and all that. You never saw that. Now you see more and more, because of Snapchat and filters, now you see more and more humans playing with bestiality. And they don't understand that, don't understand the connection to it, because you feel like you're just playing. But what it is even if you never go out and get a costume in person and put a beast on your face, then what you're doing is you're accepting a culture where those things merge together. Because understand, there is a cult following of people who literally wear beast clothes, paint themselves and decorate themselves as beasts. They do this right now, and they interact with each other as animals. And because we don't do it in the natural, we think we're just playing. But what we're doing is building up a tolerance, and we're building up an acceptance for a particular behavior, so that we will not have any kind of righteous rebuke or righteous correction of it. So whenever we see it in action, we can't really deal with it, because we know we play with the app too. And though it may just be an app for us, it's a lifestyle for them, but it silences our voice so that we cannot really minister to them or show them that they have some demonic activity that's going on in them. When you say, for me, I'm not being demonic, I'm just playing with this filter. Yes, but you're building an acceptance in you so that it silences you. you are dulling your discernment so that you cannot see what it really is, because play is serious. And it's just the beginning. That's the thing we don't understand too. We play with technology, and you don't understand that there's always a goal from Babylon to do something to disciple the generation in the future. So what comes out as a game or as a fun app in the beginning will end up becoming a full out cultural expression in the future. So there's a goal for Babylon, but Babylon understands that we have to build an acceptance for a particular behavior. We have to build an acceptance for a particular and an appetite for a particular lifestyle. We have to build this up before we introduce or allow the floodgates to open. And so, because many people don't understand this, and so we don't understand, we're training our minds to accept Babylonian teachings and to accept even the evolutionary process of man coming from beasts. The underlining message that we're all beasts, we're all animals, we're all, and scientifically you could say yes, but that we all came from beasts, we evolved from beasts, and at the core we're all beastly beings. So whatever we do, it's because we're animals. It's our instinct. It's the animal instinct. And so on a conscious level, you would never say that. You would never say, I'm an animal, I'm a dog, I am a bunny. You would never say that. Consciously, you would never say it. But then whenever we interact with that subconsciously, we accept it. Because your body and your mind can't keep looking at your face that has been augmented and that has been changed into being part human. Because see, you understand, there's false gods to that. Dionysus and these centaurs, right? But your mind can't process that I'm seeing this thing and this is not me. I'm part human, part animal. So on a subconscious level, that we're actually creating a gateway for strongholds to be built so that a strong man can come in and demonize us. And this is the goal of Babylonian cultivation. It is to demonize you, because in Revelations it talks about woe to you inhabitants. Basically the enemy has fallen, and the foul birds have come in, and now Babylon is filled with inhabitants of the devil. So Babylonian cultivation is to prepare a people for the impartation of demonic activity. So, but we have a choice. We can say, well, I'm going to stay away from technology altogether. I'm not going to touch technology. Or we can say, no, we just have to understand that with every gate, there's things that needs to be closed and things that need to be open. I can understand and participate to a certain degree, but I need to not let this get into my spirit. I need to not let this get into my subconscious. I need to not let this technology recreate new pathways that I don't want to be opened up. And I need to be able to see the goal of the technology is not just so that I can have fun, but the goal of the technology, the enemy's goal, is to cultivate me and to produce something in me so that I can be an inhabitant of Babylon, so I can be a willing participant in demonic activity, that I can become a willing participant in animal sexuality. Because understand, there's a doctrine and there's a connection between sexual beauty and animal behavior. And when you start talking about the leopards, it deals with the MK Ultra and if you ever seen Manchurian Candidate, or if you ever looked up Vigilant Citizen, he talks a lot about that, and understand that there's triggering that goes on. There's triggering that goes on, and we don't understand why we're so disengaged with people in the real world because we are so connected to our digital selves, or some of us are so connected to our animal selves or our recreated selves that we don't know how to relate to people in the real world because Babylon has cultivated us and Babylon has made us different beings. It's a way to produce multiple personalities. It's a way to produce various aspects of our consciousness, and so that we can now become different people in different places and in different spaces. And if you go back down to the core, this is what we're really dealing with. We're dealing with platforms that allow us to become different people in different places and different spaces, right? And which is really what that is it's triggering multiple consciousnesses. So based on what app I'm on or based on what technology I'm dealing with will determine and trigger the consciousness that is going to come forth. And it's the same way I'm looking into this screen right now. We don't understand that it's not just one way. The way I'm looking into the screen, but the screen has information that my mind cannot interpret, but my subconscious has to deal with. So that's why it's very important to understand play is serious, games are gates, and recreation recreates. So it's just something to think about. The church is going to have to strategize and look in and see how we can engage this culture, but understand that it's playing for keeps. We're playing for keeps. We got to wake up. Watchmen, open your eyes and see. Wake up. Don't let them dull you into a stupor. Don't let them dull you into you're gazing into a screen and don't realize they're re-scrambling your mind. They're making you into an image so that you could accept what is to come. There's always something coming around the corner that you don't see. So let me give you the thing that you can accept, and let me just let you follow the crowd. But what you don't know is it's about to get real serious from here. But that's right around the corner, but you don't see that. But now you've already accepted this, so it's real hard for you to resist the other thing because you don't even know how you got to here from there. But it's all that's in mind conditioning, mind controlling, and play is serious, games are gates, recreation recreates. That's the word for today. Grace and peace.